How do you balance advising and consulting and teaching with coaching? And so I wanted to take a little bit of time to explore that particular question with you today. And we're going to look at four things. We're going to really look at what is the balancing act, what drives our need to help others, what hooks us, as well as a quick example on a scenario that might help to illuminate really how the differences work. And we'll see if that is useful for you guys today. Remember to subscribe, like, and hit the notification button so you get notified when these videos post. All right, let's go. So advising and coaching is a very fine balance. It is really an interesting inquiry because balance implies you're spending time in both places. And so what I would invite you to consider is that as a coach, we really want to spend the majority of our time in the coaching role, which is in the space of inquiry with our clients versus the space of knowing. And so ask yourself, what seat do you spend the most time in your coaching in? If you use Ray Notes, and everybody here who has ever listened to me knows I love Ray Notes, you will even see how much time you spend talking versus how much time the client spends talking. When you start looking at coaching sessions and you see that the breakdown of time is like 20 minutes coach, 15 minutes client, that's probably telling you you're doing a bit of an imbalance towards the telling, talking, teaching, consulting, helping, solving situation. And it might be a great place to begin the reflection of how do I get more curious with my clients. I think there's also the question of what drives our need to help other people. And I think most people come into coaching or really any of the helping professions because they like to help other people. We have this idea in many cultures. In fact, I haven't met a culture yet that doesn't have this sort of drive towards expertise. Everybody wants to get trained, get more training, get more practice, get their 10,000 hours, become masterful. All of these things really lead to this idea of I'm an expert and I can help you. And there is an implicit and maybe explicit bias attached to this idea that I can help you, which is that I know something you don't know about your life. And I want to really say that because when we're thinking about this balancing act of teaching or telling or advising in balance with coaching, coaching really is taking the seat of I am here to hold the space and I am here to support your learning what is true for you versus the idea that I know what you need and I know the way that we should explore this and I know what needs to happen next to solve your problem. I'm not looking at the client situation as a problem. I'm looking at it as a point of entry for curiosity. Those are very different. And honestly, I'm not exactly sure how you balance those if you're going to stay as a coach, because one way says, I am whole, capable, resourceful, creative, and I can solve your problems. And the other says, you are whole, capable, resourceful, creative, and my job is to hold the space so you can solve your own problems. Just from a brain perspective, and the neuroscience of this really is that what lights up our brain is what we remember. So we want our clients' brains to be lit up. And I think I've said that multiple times. So that takes us into what hooks us. Why do we feel this need to help solve problems? And it's a really good question. And I'd really encourage all coaches to sit with this idea of what hooks me into starting to get into the advising mode and the telling mode and the teaching mode. And we all do it. And I'm not saying there's zero place for it, but I'm saying if we're going to have it, the balance is the imbalance towards less of it than rather having it be sort of an equal 50-50. It might be maybe 5% advising and 90% really listening. And so the question really, again, what hooks you is going to require some self-reflection on your part. It may take some time to start to notice in your coaching where you get hooked into advising, where that happens. I, again, will go back to Ray Notes because it's such a brilliant opportunity to look at a transcript of your coaching and see what did the client say and what hooked me into wanting to resolve their problem for them. It's also going to take time to notice when we have a desire to drive them towards a particular answer. And this could have to do with multiple different reasons. It may be we have our own experience with that particular situation. You know, I was told that I needed to do XYZ, and you're being told you need to do XYZ. Therefore, I'll tell you what I did in order to resolve my situation successfully. It could have to do with wanting to support clients to get out of pain faster. Very few people really want their clients to have to suffer through something. If I could just give you the answer quickly and you would have it resolved. Excuse me, I have dogs running around upstairs and I'm going to ignore them. I hope you can't hear them. It could also have to do with our ideas around providing value to clients. There's this idea that if I give you this solution and I take all of your insights and I tie them with a neat, pretty little bow and give them to you, I'm actually providing you a value, versus this other idea of value, which is how many places do people have to really be heard and really have somebody else explore with them the deeper underlying threads that are driving whatever the problem is. And so, I mean, in my opinion, this is my opinion, my bias is that listening is always going to provide a more useful outcome for the client. They're going to have their own ahas, but not only that, they're going to own them because they will have experienced it. Honestly, there could be many reasons that we get hooked into things. It could be anything. And so please, in the comments below, if you know what your hooks are and what gets you kind of brought into telling the client something and advising them and telling them, kind of leading them in a particular direction, write it in the comments below. Let's have a conversation about this. I'd be really curious. But finally, let me give you a little example of a situation, and we'll kind of look at it from both the advising, consulting perspective versus the coaching perspective. So let's say you have this client. This client has come to you with a desire to look at an issue that came up at work. This happens a lot for us as coaches, right? They just got feedback from their boss, supervisor, director, leader, whoever. They got feedback, and the feedback essentially was, you know, you have a lot to offer. Your ideas are great. We really appreciate you in this organization. You have a lot of growth that is potentially available to you in our organization. We really want to hear from you. But what we're noticing is a behavior of waiting and holding back and not really stepping into your own leadership within the organization. And so people have to really draw from you, or you don't ever end up sharing any ideas, though you go out of the meeting, you share all these great ideas. So we really need you to step up more into your role. That's the scenario. So what a consultant, or what a person who comes from the perspective of advising is going to start doing, is going through a series of questions about what the problem is. So that might start with, we're going to try and figure out, we're digging in to solve this problem. What's going to get you stepping up and stepping into this role? That's going to be our direction. And so it's going to, the questions are going to be more geared towards external things. So if you had a magic wand and you were to wave it over yourself, if you were showing up as the leader you want to be, how would you be showing up? So nothing wrong with that question. In fact, that's actually a very good question. Yet what it's doing is it's starting to put the client into this direction of moving into a solution for stepping up and stepping into. One of the other things that the conversation might be, the client says they need to figure out how to become, step up, step in, and be a bit bolder. That's what they're looking to do in this conversation. So it makes sense that the coach might say, what would it look like if you were being bolder? I think the other thing is that the client's going to tell you something like, this is what it would look like if I were being a bit bolder, or these are the things that I'm noticing that I don't want to do, and they're what's required of me being bolder or whatever. And so at that point, the coach is going to be listening from the position of the driver's seat, and they're going to say something to the fact of, whatever the client's answer is, let me work this out then for you real quick, because I'm hearing you talk. This is what I'm seeing as sort of the things that we need to be paying attention to. I'm hearing XYZ. I've also heard LMNOP, and you have lots of capabilities. You're quite capable. I know you have a lot of resources. Let's look at leveraging them. What has just happened here from the role of coach is that the coach has just become a consultant. They are now in the driver's seat. They are now directing the client towards a particular outcome that the coach has now predefined based on the fact that the client wants to step in, step up, and be a bit bolder. They're now predefined towards moving towards that particular outcome. Now, here's the place where the rub is, and this is why this isn't as useful as coaching would be in this particular regard. Most of us already know the things that we're not doing. Most of us, if we've gotten into a position where we're looking at leadership or we're looking at really anything, we also know ourselves. We've had years of experience with ourselves. So there's something that's stopping the client from just with ease stepping in and being a bit bolder. We don't know what that is. So from the position of a coach, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be listening in a slightly different way. We're going to believe that we don't need to drive to a solution because, especially right out of the gate, we don't really even know what the underlying drivers are to this particular stepping up and becoming bolder. So a coach's questions are really going to lead more towards, what does it even mean to boldly step up and step in? We're going to invite the client to start to explore this internal experience, not the external one of what it's going to take to stand up in a meeting and say something, but like what's going on internally for them. What about this is important for us to explore today? I'm not going to tell you what we need to do today. I don't know. I'm going to be in the state of I don't know. At some point in the conversation, if this topic of what's kind of in the way between where they are and where they want to be has been thorough, there's going to be a place where the coach may say something along the lines of, may I share an observation with you? Throughout this conversation, I've seen you demonstrate and talk about multiple different capacities and strengths that you have. And I'm curious, what might be important in starting to utilize some of those strengths in this particular situation, so that the client then can start to connect those dots for themselves. I'm giving an observation of my experience of the client, but I'm not telling the client what they need to do. And so really, when you hear these two ways, I'm hearing XYZ, and this is what we need to do in order to leverage it so you can step up in a meeting, or what does it even mean to step up in a meeting? And based on all of your different strengths and skill sets, what's the first place to explore in being able to then utilize that as you want to, so that you're showing up the way you'd like to be showing up in these meetings? Those are two kind of different things. And so going back to how do we balance these things? Honestly, it's a very weird little slippery slope, in the sense of, I think we balance it in an imbalanced way. If we're really going to be coaching and we're really going to be believing that the client is whole, capable, resourceful, creative, that our job is to hold the space, if we really believe that the learning that the client has an opportunity for is going to be stronger if it comes from inside of them instead of from outside of them, then what is the balance that you believe you need in order to provide that space for your client? I know what the answer is for me, but it doesn't matter whether it's the same answer for you. You know your style, you know what works for you, you know what works for your clients. What I would invite you to do, though, is to start to play with that spectrum and see about moving the dial down on advising and up on curiosity, and just see what happens. Put those in the comments below also, because I'd love to hear what you learn as you explore this topic. So thank you for today's video. Thank you for watching today's video. I really appreciate it. I also have a couple other videos that I think might be really helpful. One of them is coaching versus consulting versus therapy, and also core competency number 7, which is evokes awareness, where we're really looking at how do we share observations, insights, feelings without attachment that also have the potential to create new learning for the client. So I hope this was useful for you, and I'll see you in another video. Cheers.